Hello, and welcome back once again to the Inquisitor podcast with me, Marcus Cauchi. Today, my guest is Jamie Reeves. Jamie and I are going to be talking about something really important, real success, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and how we've both been suckered into the illusion, the status management, the working harder and dumber for less impact. It's hopefully going to be a very uncomfortable episode for all of you listening who may have fallen into the trap believing that success is about money, status, and power. We're going to tell stories from real life about us and people that we've worked with who found real integration in their life. I'm hesitating to use the work-life balance because, frankly, I don't think there is such a thing. I think there is life, and you are in it, and you have choices that you can make as to how you choose to focus your time and whether you choose to be present and pay attention or whether you choose to be distracted and off in your own little world. So without any further ado, Jamie, welcome.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So could you give the audience a couple of minutes on your history, please, and give us thoughts and all of how you ended up where you are?
So my journey is quite a strange one, really. I started out in the entertainment industry when I was 16 as a DJ and then ended up abroad doing summer seasons. And that was kind of like my university, if you like. I kind of grew up and went from boy to man, I guess, doing summer seasons and working out there back in Mallorca and the Isle of Wight. And then I came back, launched my career as a singer, went to Cyprus for 3 years, met my wife, came back, wanted something a little bit more, so tried to set up a wedding entertainment agency. Absolutely fell flat on my arse with that. But from that, found this real niche thing called singing waiters. And at the time, there was only operatic versions of this. There was no kind of pop singing waiters. And I was doing a Robbie Williams tribute. So I was very interactive, very in your face, a little bit comical as well. So I just kind of created a more general pop version of my Robbie show that we would do it in kind of wedding breakfasts and corporate dinners and things. And it just exploded and took off really, really well. So got ideas probably grander than my station, build this big 7-figure business because things were going really, really well. Then came a crash and burn moment where we nearly lost the business. And if it wasn't for my mentor and coach stepping in to be my business partner, we would have rebuilt it, created something that was better suited to my lifestyle. And yeah, here we are now.
Okay, talk me through your typical day, because I'm really curious how you can be running a 7-figure business confidently and comfortably whilst having the choices that you have in your life.
So firstly, I'll get up, journal, and do my email broadcasts and things and plan the day ahead. I've probably planned most of the stuff in for the week already. I will put in the kids' activities first, my gym sessions second, and then the main kind of 3 or 4 tasks that I need to do for the week third. And then kind of what's left is kind of how I run my business. I'm very much about delegation, keeping my team to the systems and processes that we've got in place and leading them. I want to be the conductor of the orchestra rather than the bass player, the drummer, the singer, the pot washer, as we all try and do when we're running a business. I think too many people in life own a job rather than own a business. And that's something that I've had to teach myself.
I'll challenge you on that slightly. And I think they buy a job in the belief that they're establishing a business. And what they end up doing is then taking on all of the suffering and the pain and the grind without any of the thought. Talk me through how the shift in your thinking when you hit that crunch point and the transformation that you went through in terms of realizing what actually matters most.
I think it was down to kind of nearly losing the business. We had the office, had kind of all the staff, yet shit still hit the fan. And I was doing lots of hours, not seeing my family. And yeah, it was just a wake-up call that things needed to change, things needed to be better. So we stripped it back and basically started again, working from home. And then as things grew, it was like, okay, well, I now need to lead people. I now need to help people grow, I guess. If I help my staff grow, then I can help my business grow. And that helps me have more of the lifestyle that I want to have.
So there's a fantastic model for, if you've listened to the podcast, you'll have heard it a couple of times before, but I really want to reinforce it. If you draw quadrants on a page, but you have a fifth box, which is a rectangle in the middle, and in the top left, you have doing, top right, deciding, bottom right, delegating, bottom left, designing, and middle, developing. And the exercise is this: track where you spend your time, have your alarm go off roughly every 56 minutes or so. So it's at weird times not on the hour. And look back over the past hour and what was I doing? Where was it in those 5 boxes? Doing, deciding, delegating, developing, and designing. And what was the value of that work? Was it £10 an hour, £100 an hour, £1,000 an hour, or £10,000 an hour? And very quickly, you will realize just how much of your time is spent in utterly pointless, masturbatory activities that basically allow you to stroke your ego, but you don't produce anything of value. In fact, what you do is you sacrifice. You sacrifice time, and sacrificing is going from higher to lower value, and there is zero upside. It is all downside. And I'll give you an example of this, which I'm not proud, where I sacrificed seeing my eldest daughter's first nativity play, despite promising that I would be there, because I felt compelled, whilst I was in front of a prospect, to continue the conversation instead of cutting it short. Did I get the business? Bollocks. No, I didn't. What I did was I ruined a perfectly good moment. I lost a good moment, and I think I ruined and started to put a nail in the coffin of my relationship with my daughter. Because from that moment on, I don't think she ever really believed me ever since. And I've been working hard to try and get back. But, being a parent and being stupid, I didn't learn. And as a result, I continued to sacrifice my family life for my work in the belief that my job was to be the breadwinner, the stupid idea of the male breadwinner. Whereas, in fact, what I realize now at 56 is that what my kids wanted was experiences. They wanted me to be there. And I am forever, well, I mean, you can hear it in my voice. I can never get that back. Don't make the same mistake.
Yeah, experiences are definitely what I plan to kind of put into my week and spend with my kids. I spend a lot of time being an unpaid Uber driver, driving them to football. And my wife does a lot with my daughter and dance lessons and things like that. And we're really, really busy doing that. And sometimes people look at us as if like, well, what do you do for yourselves? Well, this moment that you have your children is short. It will go before you know it.
If you have young children, up until the age of 6, their brain is recording and imprinting everything you say and do. It's telling them their place in the world, their rights, what they're capable of, their limitations, all of those things. And if they believe that they are secondary to your work, what message do you think that sends? It's a fallacy. And we spend so much of our time on trying to acquire status, wealth, and power, and status managing, instead of focusing on what really matters. The stuff that when you wake up in the morning, you're excited to do. When you do it, time flies because it gives you an opportunity to genuinely express your full creativity and to be who you really were meant to be. I think the tendency over the last 50 years or so has been to overemphasize finance, and the last 10, 20 years, data and technology. And those have meant that relationships, family, balance have all been sacrificed. So what advice do you give to your clients when they come to you, first of all, and they're carrying that baggage, the weight of that crap on their shoulders? How do you get them to see past it?
Firstly, goal setting is the main key of where they want to be in 3 years' time. Because I think if you know where you want to go, it's easier to get to that destination.
Yep.
So having that plan and then reverse engineering it and going, okay, well, this is where I want to be in 3 years' time. This is how I'm going to get a third of the way there this year. This is what I'm going to do this quarter to make that happen. And this is what I'm going to do over the next 30 days that's going to help me nail more of those things in this quarter. And then it's a case of planning the week. And then it's being really boring and building the systems and operating procedures to do that, delegating the roles that you need to do, setting up the automation that might need to take place, because some people come to me and they're still using spreadsheets and doing everything manually, when there's so many good CRM systems that you can use quite cheaply that will do a lot of the work for you. So it's kind of building all those things in, and then making sure that you do start to plan and change your life a little bit. So, for example, if there is a school play that's there, that's the first thing you put in your diary, and you make enough space around it to make sure that that goes there. Like I say, every week, the first thing that goes into my diary is the kids' activities, without fail. And then we build from there.
I just want to summarize some of the things that you've said so far. The first thing is daily journaling. Journal first thing.
Yeah.
And the people who I teach who keep a journal will typically grow their sales 300 to 1,200%. Those who don't journal average 30 to 50%, which is pretty good. But in my world, I think that's disappointing. The second thing is planning. Have a plan that allows you to realize the vision that you want for your life. So build the world that you want to create in your imaginations first, and plan it backwards. It's really important to plan it backwards, because if you plan it forwards, odds are you're going to end up going the very scenic route and not get where you want to. Start in 3 years' time. The business I want to create, the life I want to create, that business will fund. Okay. And that's a really important thing. You have a career in order to fund a life. It should be paying for your life. It should not be your life. Unless, I mean, fine, if you want to make that choice, but then you are sacrificing so much of what makes life rich and fruitful. So continue to do the planning. Plan backwards and plan methodically. What do I need to know? By when do I need to know it? Where can I find it? Who can help me? How will I measure it? What are the consequences of performance and non-performance? How will I escalate it? What am I going to do to hand on responsibility? So the 5 Ds: doing, deciding, delegating, designing, and developing. These are really critical, because you as a leader have leverage with those points, and you can discern where and with whom you're going to focus your attention. And again, Jamie's making this point. He wants his people to follow processes and systems, but it doesn't mean it's utterly rigid and dogmatic. What it means is that there's a process there that allows you to do the work, but by freeing up a huge amount of your time from the clutter, what you end up with is more space to think. So let's dig into that. How much time do you spend in reflection? What do you do in your thinking time?
Well, my reflection probably comes within gym and sauna and walking the dog. Those are kind of three moments.
Which are also pre-booked in your calendar, by the way, aren't they?
Yes.
Calendar blocking, secret weapon.
So typically in the gym and sauna, I'll listen to a podcast or go on Audible, so that kind of helps stimulate some of my thinking. I'm trying to not do it so much when I'm walking the dog, because I think sometimes we can have too much noise and it doesn't give enough of a free rein for the brain to run freely. As you can tell by my businesses and the background with the guitars and music stuff on the wall, I'm quite a creative being. So I want to have that space to think and just let my brain run riot. And then if I think of something, I'll make a little note of it, send an email to myself or put it in notes, and then work from there. But it's having those little spaces within the block. I'm also trying to get back into reading, because I've kind of fell out with it a little bit. And I know how much that when I'm reading, again, it creates those thought patterns and creates those moments to go, oh yeah, this is what we should do next with that. And again, it's just really easily using other people's experiences to then fit around your own business.
So let's have a quick dig into the structure of your organization, because at the beginning you said that your business partner was your coach, and he came in and the two of you turned the business around. Talk to me about the partnership and how you delegate and how you share responsibility and so on. Because I think often as entrepreneurs, we do have a tendency to think, oh, well, I have to do it all, which is absolutely the trap. So how does the partnership allow you to have a full life? And how do you decide who does what?
Well, he's no longer involved in the business. When we got things back up and running about 3 years after the blip, we bought him out. So it's now back in full control of me and my wife. But I do have an office manager who basically does most of what I do. And the idea with it is within the next few years to create this kind of false exit so that then we have meetings once a week. She and the team run the business.
So this is succession planning in effect.
Yeah. So it's just getting to that point where I'm still in control of the business, but most of the business runs without me doing things. I'm kind of like, I'm not even 50 yet, so I probably shouldn't use this word, but I'm like the granddaddy that they come to advice for when they need it. And then they kind of, okay, we'll leave you alone and let you do your thing.
Isn't that the ideal situation to be in the business? I mean,
Absolutely,
there's hiring talented people and then suppressing their talent. I worked with a company that does huge transformation programs in large organizations. So, the starting point is 4,000 managers, and we train all of them simultaneously how to move from command and control, supervisory style management to one of an operational coaching management style. And the net result of that is a 74x return on investment over 6 months. Why? Because you're empowering people to be fully creative instead of being a bottleneck. Tell me about the difference between delegating and trying to take it all on in terms of the difficulties that you created inadvertently in the business that now you no longer do, or you're creating different ones.
Well, I think all my team work from home. So I think that makes you do things that you might not do in the office, which kind of is good and bad, because you have to let people get on with it and have their own answers sometimes. So I have a saying that is, you either win or you learn.
Yeah.
It allows my team to make decisions if they need to. And if they make the wrong decisions, then we can talk it through and kind of give them the experience then, so that the next time something like that happens, they've got the knowledge to go and do it in a better way.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How did you create the conditions where they felt safe to make decisions and make mistakes and confess up to them so that you could learn from them instead of them hiding and burying it?
Well, I think that's still an ongoing thing, because there are times where that happens and people bury it and it doesn't work so well. But then on the mainstay, people will kind of fess up and go, I've done this here. I think it's about showing that you care, showing that you want them to win and that you want them to develop. And I think that having me working in my own home office allows me to have those chimp brain moments without being in front of them, because as an owner of a business, we're all emotional beings. We want it done perfectly in what way. But by working in a home office away from people, it gives me the opportunity to react, get that kind of poison out of my system, but then reflect and go, okay, stop being a dick. How do I help this person be better?
Well, I think there are a couple of things that I've learned along the way which have been incredibly useful. The first is that we have to be explicit that failure is part of the learning process and we expect it. What we don't expect is for people to hide it. We have a failure log, and anytime you fuck up, you put it in the failure log. The only reason I will fire someone is if they hide a failure, typically. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest reason. It's not the only reason, but if they're not performing, that's probably down to me. I hired them. I onboarded them. It's my responsibility to develop and grow them. If they are not the right person, that's on me. If they manage to slip through my predictive hiring process, then that's on me. So I have to find ways of taking ownership of these things. And I think one of the things that I'm reading from what you're telling me is that piece about personal responsibility is really important to you. How have you filtered that into the culture of the business?
I think it just comes naturally with working from home and having those expectations of, right, okay, this is what we need you to do. And because it's not a family business, but it is. So they're not family by blood, but we've all grown a really strong bond, even though it's kind of done via Zoom and WhatsApp.
It's amazing how those relationships have bloomed over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I've developed thousands, literally thousands of great relationships and connections through virtual meetings. And I can't believe how the old school are so against it.
I can see it to a point because when you meet in person, you do get a better connection, but it's minimal. It's like slight gains, but then you might lose a whole day of work making a 3-4 hour journey and then a 3-4 hour journey back. That's not productive, and that's not conducive with the way that I want to live as well, because that will take 8 hours out of my day plus whatever it is to do the meeting. How am I supposed to be around for family for that and be the dad that I want to be? And that always comes into my thinking. There are a few occasions when I'll go on a mastermind group, when I'll go on a course, but I limit the amount of those that I do because I still want to grow as a person. I still want to grow as a business owner. Business is still one of my highest values, but the most important thing to me is being the best dad that I can be.
I recently interviewed one of my former clients, a lady called Silke Arends, and she is the head of channel for EMEA for HubSpot. And she defines success better than I've ever heard it defined before, which is that I'm happy and joyous in every moment and fully present with my kids, who are 3 and 6, and I complete my work successfully in 8 hours a day on an average day. Now, that to me is a win. She's got the status, she's got the authority, but she doesn't wield power as a weapon. She develops her people. She's constantly training, coaching, helping them evolve. And by doing 2 things, calendar blocking and journaling, she's managed to control how she uses her time. You cannot manage time. You can make choices within it. So let's talk about time management for a while. If we look at the way most people come to work, there often isn't a great deal of structure. And even if there is, there are constant interruptions. How do you manage the constant interruptions of being the business owner? Because I'm guessing now it's slightly better because you're the granddad and they come to you for advice. But when you first started out and you started employing people, I imagine the number of interruptions was significantly greater. So how have you created that culture where they take more ownership, more responsibility, and they understand how to make decisions safely without getting punished?
The first is making yourself less available, which is much easier to do working from home than it is working in an office. Like I'm on this podcast right now, my phone is face down. It's continuing on silent. I don't have any notifications, so it won't distract me. So it is blocking a few things out and doing that, and then having those regular checkups as well, so that then they don't feel all alone. We have these WhatsApp groups that for different areas of the business, we check in with each other quite a bit. But the way I don't let that distract me is by having my phone on silent, face down, so that then I can get on with what I need to do. And I'm quite strict of, if I'm doing something, I will make myself finish that before I pick up and maybe get back to their question. So sometimes they'll want a quicker answer than what I can give them. So they have to work it out for themselves. And then it's a case of, right, okay, we review that. Did you make the right decision? Yeah. Cool. So on you go. If you didn't make the right decision, okay, what can we learn from that? How would you do it next time? And it's just that constant review.
And are those lessons captured somewhere centrally, or is it just with the individual?
We do have an online systems and process book. We use Waybook that create a little instructions manual for us, and we will record how to do certain things on Zoom. Nowadays, it's so easy to record yourself and do the screen grab at the same time. And then you've got that lesson that's there for anybody that comes into the business to go through it once with you, then go through it with them doing it, and then they can just watch the video as they do it until they feel they've got the rhythm. So it's really easy to set those things up.
We did something similar within a hotel group that I was working with, because there was always a resource problem, especially during COVID. When they were coming out of that, they were trying to find ways of making themselves more effective. And often the sales team was being bombarded with lots and lots of inquiries, but they couldn't handle them all. So what they did was they videoed themselves doing various processes of taking the call, dealing with it, going through the process systems and all of that. And each of those videos was then, you videoed it, you audioed it, there was a pathway or a flowchart of what needs to be done. And then anyone could step in. They raised EBITDA by 11%. Now, I don't know if you've worked in hotels, but raising it by 11% is a huge plus, just simply by systematizing. I mean, that was the biggest change. They systematized everything and made it simple for people to learn how to do the job, so they were far more flexible. Net result of that was people were more engaged, higher retention rates. Yeah.
Yeah.
And higher engagement means better customer experience.
Yeah. And to get better customer experience, you have a nicer job because they're able to do the job properly, and you're developing people. And again, the buzz that you get out, or I certainly get out of developing people now, which is probably why I've moved into coaching and helping more people, is immense. I think we're put on this earth just to help as many people as we can. So I started that as a singer, entertaining people, and then built the business to help create these fantastic weddings. And now I'm on this third part of the journey of helping coach people so that they can live their life better, I guess. If we're trying to avoid this work-life balance kind of scenario, is live their life better so they have a better business and better home life.
Well, you've touched on something again. If we go back to the 5Ds and the £10, £100, £1,000 and £10,000 an hour activities, if what we then do is we start to look at, well, what are the £10 an hour activities that if I were to delegate that to someone else or outsource it, then it would be a more efficient use of our time. But how do I get my people to be operating on £100 and £1,000 and £10,000 an hour? How do I move myself up from the 100 to 1,000 to 10? Because if I can do that, then I just move the decimal point one point to the right in terms of the value per hour per employee. Now, that exercise, it's hard, it's very uncomfortable, but it's well worth doing, because if you can identify the jobs that you currently do that someone else in your organization could do as well or better, if only you invested the time to develop them, then you could free your time up to do something else. So what are you focused on at the moment?
At the moment, I'm focused on growing Dr. Biz and bringing that in as a brand so that I can kind of help people. One of the things I learned over the last year, I think my biggest lesson last year was I focused too much on the results and not enough on the habits.
You can control the inputs, you can't control the outcomes.
Exactly right. And because I've had this success with the Best Singing Waiters, I thought it'd be really easy to create that with my business coaching. So I got too het up on the results and did well, and we helped people, and that was all great, and we made a nice steady start. But quite often we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. So my yearly goals for that were probably way out of kilt. So now I'm really focused on, right, okay, am I doing the things that I need to do that are going to build this business? And if I'm doing that, then as long as I'm getting a little bit of encouragement along the way and I'm picking up a few wins, then that's brilliant. Come a year's time, when I've had that year of consistently doing what I need to do and building those habits, then I will start reviewing the results a little bit more.
How do you make sure you don't get attached to a process or a system because it's worked in the past or it was your brilliant idea? And how do you make sure that you're dealing with what's real instead of your fantasy?
So I guess for me, if I take back giving up singing was one. So I love singing. I love performing. I'm a bit of a show off when I've got a microphone in my hand. But for me to be able to do the things I want to do with my family at weekends, I can't be going out to every single wedding and performing at it. So I started to dial back, and now pretty much, I'm almost retired. I'm going to do my last gig in the summer. There's a plum job out in Europe that I've kind of earmarked myself to be my retirement gig, and then I can properly be the granddad. So yeah, it's kind of forcing yourself to do those things, and then seeing where that goes from there. Because as business owners, we all think that we're the best ones that can do this. No one else can do this anywhere near as good. And nobody over the last 4 or 5 years has asked me to go and sing, because they don't know me as a singer. They just know me as Jamie, the head waiter at the best singing waiters. So I guess I don't know whether my ego should be flattened by that or whether it should be proud of my team. And I'll choose the latter.
I think very often our ego gets hooked and we get, and I mean, the Buddha said it better than me, attachment is a root to all misery. And my experience is the things that I've found that I had attachment to were distractions, because it was generally my ego that was getting pulled into the fight rather than taking the time to stop and think. And this is where I think we really need to take the time to reflect. The journaling is very important. Time for thinking is very important. And going looking for people who disagree with us is also very important, because otherwise we end up in an echo chamber. And I think far too often we get an idea in our head and then we run with it instead of asking ourselves some really important questions. How am I wrong? Is there something I'm missing? What am I not seeing? And this is where I think the best argument for having a diverse team comes in, because they can see things that I can't because I have blind spots. So tell me how your team has helped you identify your own blind spots and to overcome them, so that you're actually playing to everybody's strengths and their strengths make everyone's weaknesses irrelevant.
Well, our team's quite unique in a certain way that most of our salespeople are either singers, they're not traditional salespeople, or they're former bride and grooms. So they've experienced what we do on their wedding day, and then they've come and joined our team. So you've got people that have got proper real life experience in what we do. So by having those regular meetings and listening to them, I guess that helps them. Sometimes it's seen as well, because they won't always say. We've started implementing a lot more WhatsApp stuff into our sales system for kind of after the first conversation.
You're creating another channel that's specific for you and the customer to communicate.
So if we have a conversation with somebody, we'll then usually send out a quote via email, but we've started sending it by WhatsApp as well. And we've created this little template that people can really easily, and it looks nice, but we want to try and get it to people within kind of 5-10 minutes of the conversation, so that the conversation they had on their phone, they've now got the WhatsApp message and it's all there nice and easy. And there's the booking link, and people can get booked in quicker. The problem was it was weighing down our sales team with lots and lots of admin. All I could see was my sales team were getting more and more overwhelmed. And it was a lesson that I learned 10 years ago when I first started having a sales team. And it was one that I relearned in the last couple of weeks, because as soon as, well, why don't we just give this to admin? Admin are going to be a bit overwhelmed, but we'll deal with that as it happens, and then free the sales team up to do that. The amount of difference it made to the sales team within like 2 days was immense. The amount of extra conversations they were having was immense. So
just out of curiosity, what were the stats on that? Can you give a rough ballpark?
So we typically do about 20-25 conversations a day. And when we do a broadcast SMS, it does go up a little bit. But when we did our first broadcast SMS of January, we went from like 25 conversations to 41 conversations. And that's within a team of 3. And that's 2 full-timers and 1 part-timer.
This is an example of going from £10 to £100 an hour. Yeah. And by delegating, by taking away the admin task at £10 an hour, you're now freeing those resources up to do double the production.
Yeah.
At no cost.
Yeah. And making the sales team happier at the same point as well.
Absolutely. Because you don't want a miserable sales team that is trying to avoid the admin and dreading it.
Yeah. Because that's what it was doing. It was causing overwhelm. One of our brides is a little bit older, so she's not great on tech. So having to do all that admin on top of that was really kind of causing her a bit of overwhelm. So by freeing her up for that, it's brought her back, and now her productivity's through the roof again, which is great for us and
And no
great for
doubt
her.
morale as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So, Jamie, tell me, what's your goal setting process? I'm very curious to learn about that.
So, like most people, I've got a coach as well. So I've learned a couple of different ways over the years. The first is like a hot pen technique. So you'd spend 10, 20 minutes just spilling everything out. So it starts of, in 3 years' time, I would like my life to be, and then you write it all out, except you kind of write it out as if it has happened rather than I would like it to be.
And my life is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So put in all the kind of things that you want to do. So I've done that one before. And then there's another one where you kind of list the experiences and the kind of things that you want to have. So it might be go to all the Disneys across the world. It might be go and see different artists or comedians live. My son Jack is a very keen footballer, and one of the experiences I'd like to send him on is to go to Benfica Academy and do like a week's summer camp there, where you play in the actual Benfica Academy, where so many big football names have come through, and you play on the pitches. You've got the gym, you've got all their coaches. It looks absolutely immense. So that's an experience that I'd like to create for him. We've done stuff like that in the past for my daughter, who's about to embark on a experience with English Youth Ballet, which is going to end with a performance at Manchester Opera House in March. So, and then there's stuff in there that's business orientated as well. So for the best singing waiters, I'd love us to be involved in 1% of all the weddings that happen across the UK, which sounds like a really low number, but that would be 2,500 events every year. So that's kind of like everything that drives our sales and marketing is trying to gradually get to that point where we've got that 1% market share.
What's interesting is that you're willing to take your time. There's a big difference between those who are always in a rush and those who understand that this is a long game. I lifted this from the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, that we're long-term selfish. And we play this game that it doesn't matter whether someone buys now. If they buy eventually, that's great. If they don't, that's great too. But our objective is to recruit lifetime customers, advocates, champions. It's not to try and transact. And therein lies a big difference. I think in terms of the goal setting, it's instructive as well. I think everyone's been taught about smart goals, but I don't think the goals should be smart. I think they should be done. I think they should be dream-based, uplifting, method-friendly, and behavior-driven. And once you've worked out the goals based on their dumbness, then you smarten the behaviors and you work out what are the specific behaviors, how are you going to measure it, and so on. And too often, because we've fixated on finance, technology, and data, we've forgotten that it's about relationships. I'm curious, given the nature of your work, what proportion of the singing waiters came through referral, recommendation, and personal advocacy?
It's probably a very small percentage because it's of the surprise nature of it. We've got over 650 video testimonials and over 130 five-star Google reviews. So we do a good job and we get good praise back from it. But because every bride wants their wedding to be different, and sometimes that hinders us in getting those referrals and kind of getting the repeat business. Whereas a photographer might take a load of great pictures, and so the bride will go, yeah, we'll use your photographer. They were great. That happens a little bit less with us.
Interesting. Okay. And have you given any thought to how you might reverse that trend?
Honest answer, no. We do lots of emails out to keep people in touch. But yeah, it's not something that we've spent a lot of time thinking on, if I'm honest.
Okay. I'm curious because, I mean, you must have some amazing video footage and a campaign just of show reels and little funny moments. I would have thought would have created that advocacy base if you could get the permission.
Yeah, well, we've got over 2,500 videos on our YouTube channel, and our TikTok channel is similar. So there's lots of like those moments.
You've got the moments. It's the packaging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's the thought process of how do we go about doing that. And the sausage machine that we've got works so well in doing that. Sometimes you have to look at one part of the machine at a time. So I guess that might be one of my thinking moments now that you've sown that seed to go away and think of how we could be better at that.
I would strongly urge you to have a listen to the episode I did with Andy Cunningham. Andy was Steve Jobs' marketing CMO for Apple, Next, and Apple. And she's worked to hundreds of other firms since, but she's developed a marketing matrix or mosaic, which is really powerful. And I found incredibly instructive. So if you want, happy to make a connection with her, but check that process out.
Yeah, we'll do.
We need to wrap up now, but tell me this. You've got a golden ticket and you can go back and whisper in the ear of the idiot Jamie, age 23. What are you going to advise him that undoubtedly he'll have ignored, but would have benefited from?
I think it's caring less about drinking and more about achieving. I was too keen to...
That's very good advice.
Well, I gave up drink properly about 7-8 years ago because once you hit 40, the hangovers are too much to bear. And having 3 kids and a business, spending 3 days out with a hangover just wasn't...
wasn't like quite heavy drinking, in fairness.
Yeah, those were the party moments. I wasn't kind of on the sauce every weekend, but even kind of having a couple of beers was kind of affecting me the next day. So I look back at my youth and think I don't really regret much, because when I look at the way my life has turned out, whenever there's been a crap moment, it's then led back up to something beautiful happening. So I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have experienced so many different things if things had gone to plan. But the one thing that I would say that if I could advise my younger self is focus on being better rather than just being pissed. As a 20-something singer in the entertainment industry, those kind of things go hand in hand. So there's lots of parties, lots of good times, which were all well and good, but I could have maybe done a bit more.
Excellent. Jamie, how can people get a hold of you?
So if you go on Instagram and look up Dr. Biz UK, you can find me there. If you are after the best singing waiters, just type the best singing waiters into Google or Instagram and you'll find us there too.
Fabulous. Jamie Reeves, thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.
So this is Marcus Cauchi signing off once again from the Inquisitor podcast. If you've enjoyed this, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tag someone. And if you feel the urge, leave an honest review. 1 star or 5 star, don't care, just want feedback. If you'd like to be a guest, ping me, marcus@laughs-last.com. And if you're up for a challenge and you want to really understand how you compare against the top 4% of sellers worldwide and what you can do to move your behavior and your performance towards their results, then please complete the sales aptitude test. The link is in the blurb. And grab 30 minutes with me. No pressure, no charge. If you want to talk to me about coaching afterwards, you can, but I'm not going to sell it to you. You're going to have to buy it. In the meantime, stay safe and happy selling. Bye-bye.